The purpose of this video is to analyze the culture of Venezuela. As you all know, there are 5 main aspects of culture: the impact of globalization, language, gender, religion, as well as ethnicity and race. First, we turn to Brandon Persinger, an expert on the impact of globalization and languages of Latin America. How has popular culture impacted Venezuela, and how has the government responded?
In Venezuela, pop culture has caused many disagreements between the government and the people. Venezuela has many indigenous groups, as seen in the infographic, including the Huaros and the Pimen. In much of Venezuela, there are many groups that are native to the region, which maintain their folk culture and try to refrain from the Western ways. Along with the natives, the leader Hugo Chavez has also tried to refrain from the Western ways and oppose the new culture due to many of his own beliefs. Due to Venezuela shutting down the Western ways and the country having a relatively low death rate and a declining birth rate, that puts Venezuela in stage 3 of the DTM, as seen in the infographic in the population pyramid. Overall, Venezuela has been opposed to pop culture and has tried shutting down the new Western ways.
And what are the primary languages in Venezuela, and how have they been spread?
In Venezuela, the main official language is Spanish, but throughout the country there are other main languages that are spoken, including indigenous languages and other languages spread by colonization. Along with Spanish, the other dominant languages include English, other European languages, and finally Eastern Asian languages. Overall, in Venezuela, there are over 40 languages that are spoken throughout the country. The primary languages besides indigenous languages are spread through colonization, which are spread by large powers taking control of the country and overall leaving their languages behind over a large period of time. Overall, due to colonization, Venezuela has become an overall diverse country in the languages due to multiple languages as seen on the graph in the infographic.
Thank you, Brandon. Next, we will turn to Will Brinkman, a major in gender studies specializing in South American countries. How does gender equality play a role in Venezuela?
Much like the United States, men and women in Venezuela are treated equally. The culture of Venezuela is also very similar to its neighboring countries. Men and women both get education, work, provide for their families, and live productive lives. One of the many similarities between men and women in Venezuela is their literacy rates. They both have a literacy rate of 97%, which means a majority of the population of men and women attended post-secondary schooling. Because of this, they are both capable of obtaining professional careers. Another similarity is the average school enrollment of men and women in Venezuela. They are both near 95% school enrollment. This means that almost everyone capable of being in school is enrolled. This is yet another example of how men and women of Venezuela play equal roles in society, since they both have a very high average school enrollment and a very high literacy rate. One difference between the population of men and women in Venezuela is the role they play in the government. In Venezuela, the branches of government primarily consist of men. Contrary to what one might think, this is not because women aren't allowed to be involved in the government, it's because they choose not to, and over time has become a male-dominated profession. In the past, the women of Venezuela found their identity by staying at home and taking care of their families. Within the past 20 years, there have been numerous laws and acts passed to protect the rights of both women and children. An example of this is in Venezuela's 1999 Constitution. It states, "All persons are entitled to full citizenship rights." It also states that gender discrimination is prohibited. Since then, the role of women play has greatly improved. They now have equal rights and protection just like men always have.
Thank you, Will. Next, we turn to Max Arbecker, an expert on Christianity in Latin America. What are some characteristics of Roman Catholicism, and how has it spread to Venezuela and throughout the world?
In Venezuela, the dominant religion is Roman Catholicism. This is a hierarchical religion led by the Pope. It is also universalizing, meaning that one of its main goals is to convert people. The heart of Christianity is in Israel, since this is where Jesus lived. When the Roman Empire adopted Christianity, it evolved into Roman Catholicism, which is why its hearth is in the Vatican City, which is a small enclave inside of Rome. As the Roman Empire conquered much of Europe, Roman Catholicism diffused contagiously to Spain. Later, when Spain became a colonizing power, it spread to the natives and mestizos of Venezuela through the relocation of Spanish colonizers and missionaries. Today, many different countries around the world practice Roman Catholicism, including almost every country in Latin America. This is because these countries were all colonized by either Spain or Portugal, both of which have Roman Catholic majorities. Since all of these countries practice Roman Catholicism, there have been no religious conflicts between Venezuela and its neighbors. A few other countries in Europe also have Roman Catholic majorities: Ireland, France, and Italy. Most of the countries that these countries colonized practice Roman Catholicism today, similar to the way Roman Catholicism diffused to Venezuela. Most of the holy sites for Roman Catholicism are in Israel and Jerusalem. One holy site is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, a church believed to contain Jesus' tomb. Another is the city of Bethlehem in the West Bank, which is where Jesus was born.
Thank you, Max. Next, we turn to Carter Wemhoff, an expert on the races and ethnicities present in Venezuela. What ethnic and racial groups are present in Venezuela, and is there any conflict between these groups?
In terms of race and ethnicity in Venezuela, you can look at the infographic and you can look at the pie chart for a better view on this. But a little over half the Venezuelan population is mestizo, or a mix of European, African, and indigenous descents. So, a lot of people in Venezuela are mixed. A little less than half the population of Venezuela is from white European descents. 3% of the population about is from African descents, and about 2% of the population is from indigenous descents. So the high percentage of white Venezuelans in the country is caused by the encouragement of migration in the past. So the government encouraged the migration of white Venezuelans to, quote, purify the population. And this is an example of racism. Racism is still a prevalent problem in Venezuela, even though most deny the fact. And there are two ways that racism can still be seen. One of those ways is economic status of Venezuelans. So Venezuelans with a lighter skin color tend to have higher median incomes than those with darker skin color. Another way that racism is prevalent in the country is through beauty pageants. So one director of a beauty pageant said that lighter-skinned women looked better than darker-skinned women, and this is the general norm among most people in beauty pageantry, that lighter-skinned women look better than darker-skinned women. And this is an example that tarnishes the identity of those black Venezuelans. Now, racism is thought also to be the cause of Venezuelans' current political problems, because Venezuela is currently on a political breakdown. Racism is thought to contribute to this problem by increasing turmoil between the peoples.
Thank you all for watching. I hope you know a little bit more about the culture of Venezuela.